And welcome on in to the latest edition of the Blue Horseshoe podcast. He is George Bremer. I am Ryan Hickey. We are coming to you live on Thursday after day number 6 of Colts training camp is in the books. And George, a pretty big noteworthy practice here on Thursday for two reasons. One is that Anthony Richardson took all of the first team reps again. Second straight practice he has done so. And one thing we've talked about a lot, George, in this pod and really all off season has been Anthony Richardson, not only just the roller coaster that he is going to obviously be going through this season, ups, downs, but the big question we're going to watch this year is how does he respond after a bad drive, after a bad game? And so on Tuesday's practice, we talked about it was pretty ugly. A lot of inconsistencies, 5 out of 12, had an interception there as well, just some bad decision-making and bad execution more, I should say, than decision-making overall, just bad execution, bad day. Thursday, he had a chance, George, to bounce back and kind of show his improvements. You were there. What did you see on Thursday's practice today compared to how he played on Tuesday?
Yeah, I mean, there's still work to do. I think we know that. He still doesn't look like a 10-year veteran. You know, he's not out here running everything smoothly. There's still some timing issues. I think there's still some – I think one thing that's interesting is early in camp, it looked like in 7-on-7, he was holding on to the ball too long. I think we talked about this. In 11-on-11, he was kind of rushing things, and he wasn't maybe letting the process play out long enough. And it seems like he's maybe overcorrected in 11-on-11, and now he's holding on to the ball a little bit too long in that drill as well. But I think that's part of this process. None of this is like, oh no, red flag type of things yet. He's still growing. He's still learning. It was another, I think by and large, it was another learn from it day more than it is a celebrate it day. But he finished 8 of 13. And I think probably the biggest takeaway today is second pass of camp was picked off. Daryl Baker, who's been having a nice camp out here, second year guy, undrafted guy, has real chance to start week 1 as things stand right now. Got in there, got the pick. It looked like from my angle, and it's hard. I mean, I hate to judge too much. I'm standing on the sideline and try to get into the quarterback's head. All my vast experience on the field here, especially of playing quarterback. But it looked like from where I was standing that he kind of forced it, that he kind of locked on to Alec Pierce, and he was, didn't really look elsewhere and kind of forced the ball in. And Baker, I think, baited him a little bit. Pierce talked about after practice, not that play in general, but he talked about, just generally that Baker's one of those guys that uses his speed and he kind of plays back a little bit. He's on your hip. I think he kind of baited Richardson into the throw and got the pick. And so right at that moment, you're like, wow, that was early. Let's see what happens. The rest of the day, he's 7 of 11 in 11-on-11 drills, and he throws a touchdown pass to Evan Hall in the red zone, which is the first of those that we've seen from him. It was just a little swing route. It wasn't, anything that's going to make Sports Center, but it's progress. It's his first red zone touchdown. So, and I think his first touchdown period in camp. So, I think that's, for me, that's a takeaway today, that you had a rough start on a play that you probably got a rookie welcome to the NFL kind of moment. And you're able to bounce back and finish the day in good shape. They finished with the 2-minute drill, which I always like, because I can sit here and I can tell you numbers, but the drill, I think, is much, it's football. You understand that a lot better. He was 3 of 6 on that. They stalled at about the 40-yard line, and Matt Gay came on and hit a 58-yard field goal. So Gardner Minshew, by comparison, in the second drive with the second team, he went 5 of 8. They stalled closer to the 30 and about 25. They stalled about 25, and Matt Gay missed the 43-yard field goal. So that's, to me, those are much more, I don't know, conclusive results than just 7 of 13 is, in a vacuum.
Wow, sounds like Matt Gay's trying to throw the QB competition, huh? Hey, Anthony Richardson got a field goal in his 2-minute drill, and Gardner Minshew got no points in his, huh?
Yeah, maybe he was worn out after that first one. It was hot out here today. They took a drink break midway through practice, so maybe he was worn out.
Just what you want, George. Your free agent record-breaking kicker getting worn out after kicking the first field goal of training camp. Holy cow. We're looking good here for 2023. But it's, like you said, it's encouraging in the sense that, especially now, when you knew coming after Tuesday's practice that was a struggle, you knew Richardson, the focus is going to be bouncing back on Thursday and having a better practice. Like you said, it's almost in a way encouraging that you right away, boom, the pick is had, and it's easy to kind of go in the dumps and say, oh, shoot, woe is me. Like, things are only getting worse. Like, this is supposed to be a perfect practice. And right away, like, it's right back to the negative and kind of going right back to where Tuesday was. And it's good to see that again. In small drills, 7-on-7, 11-on-11, he's just making the plays. And I think that's also part of it too, George. We kind of talk about making Richardson's development easy. Even on a simple swing pass to Evan Hull for a touchdown, like you mentioned, it's not going to be on SportsCenter. It's not going to be on the NFL Network and showing how a highlight of how great Anthony Richardson is. But honestly, especially for his rookie season, George, I think the more plays like that, just the smart play, not the sexy play, not the highlight play, just a smart play is going to help his development going forward. Just because, again, we know what he can do physically. We know the flashiness he brings. But the more he makes the simple plays, the better he's going to be in the long term. We see it all the time. Like Mahomes makes tremendous plays and left-handed passes and underhand passes and falling back. And we see the craziness and the dazzle that he does bring and the sizzle. But a lot of the times what makes him so successful is just making the right play or the easy play, taking the layups. And George, that L word layup is something we heard a lot after Carson Wentz's rough 2021 season. And that's why Matt Ryan, in large part, was brought here in 2022, make the layups. And so if you're Richardson, even if nothing else in year number one, where there's not a lot of flashy plays, if he's making a lot of layups, George, I would consider that a big win because even though, again, it's not sexy, it's not eye-popping, you're not going to make a big highlight reel out of 5-yard underneath passes and swing passes to the running back, that's going to get this offense going forward here in a good position to succeed.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is, we're not seeing half of his game right now. That's one of the things you have to understand. The run game is what it is. I mean, Quentin Nelson took a little exception with me after practice when I said the run game is not live, because it is in the trenches. It absolutely is. If you're Quentin Nelson, the run game is live. If you're DeVorce Buckner, the run game is live. But for the running backs themselves, for the quarterbacks, definitely with a red jersey on, it's not. And so you can't gauge that as well. I mean, there are a couple runs, and he had one today. I mean, on a 2-minute drive, he starts at 0 for 2. So there's another situation where he starts at 0 for 2 and he finishes 3 for 4. But it's 3rd and 10, and he runs for the first down. And I think that's something that we won't be surprised to see happen, in a live action game. So how much do you take from it when he's wearing a red jersey? I don't know. I felt like maybe there was a generous spot from the official that helped extend that drive as well. But, those are things that's training camp. That's what it is. Sometimes you say, okay, let's give him the benefit of the doubt here and keep the drive going and see how he responds. And how did he respond? He's 3 or 4 the rest of the way. The drive kind of, bogs down past midfield and they get field goal. So I think that's where he's at now. I mean, I don't think anyone's ready to, send him to Orlando for the Pro Bowl at the end of the year or anything like that. But he's making strides. All of his teammates say that the improvement that they've seen in him from even just OTAs to, now here in August is been tremendous. There's still a lot of throws he'd like to have back. About once, at least it feels like once a practice, there's a throw that just sails over somebody's head. Today, a couple of them in the red zone. To me, that's part of the process. I don't know. Like I expect that. I don't think anyone should come out here and think it's going to look like, 2004 Peyton Manning. This is a process, and it's going to take time. And I think you see some good and you see some bad. And like I said, I also think half that game's. I always go back to Tim Tebow, right? Not that that's the gauge here, but if you watch him in training camp, his whole game was just making plays in the moment. And if you go out there in training camp, it's a disaster. But then somehow in the fourth quarter of the game, that magical year he had in the NFL, he's out there running around making plays. That aspect of Anthony Richardson is not here right now. You don't really get a gauge for what he's going to do, when it's 3rd and 10 in the game on the line. The closest to it was today in the 2-minute drill, and he took off and he got a first down. So, take all the caveats you want about the red jersey and spot and anything else. Bottom line is that's the closest moment we've seen him have, and he delivered.
And too, George, I think this can't be hammered home enough. And like I said, the running part's going to come. It's training camp, and that part seems easy enough once you get into the game to kind of work on and just have it naturally occur. You don't have to really, emphasize him scrambling in training camp because, like I said, he's also not getting hit. But it's also important to remember. I know this number's been thrown around a lot, But now, especially that we're seeing him on the field in a Colts uniform, and when the struggles come, it's important to remind yourself of this one number, 13. That's the number of starts he's had in his college career, 13. He's very raw. He's still a guy that has a lot to learn. You look at guys in his own draft class, Bryce Young, 2-year starter at Alabama. C.J. Stroud, 2-year starter at Ohio State. Will Levis, I think he's older than me. He was in college for what feels like 10 years. Starting at Kentucky for bare minimum 2 years as well before being at Penn State, or being at Penn State for a few years, then starting the last 2 at Kentucky. So even with the Colts in recent history, Andrew Luck, 3-year starter at Stanford, Peyton Manning, 3-year starter at Tennessee. All of these guys have bare minimum double and triple the amount of experience just at the college level compared to Anthony Richardson. And so now we always talk about the jump from college to the NFL, how it's the most difficult one. It's the toughest one for any player to adjust to. The speed is different. I think it's also part of the reason why, George, you mentioned the 11-on-11. He seems to be speeding up, 7-on-7, kind of holding the ball too long. It's one of those things where also the speed, I'm sure, and the disguises are giving him a tough time, just in part because he's not had a lot of experience at the college level reading that. So just remember that if he has a bad day, a bad stretch, a bad month, once the regular season comes and he's struggling and it looks ugly, this is a guy, like you said, George, is working through it. And still doesn't mean the struggles are a bad thing, but just the 13 games, not having a lot of experience, some of the growing pains that we saw Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck have, I know not that much at their respective colleges because they were great. But again, you do kind of push through and learn some things when you just play. I think it's also hammers home the point, George, of why I think it's imperative he's a week 1 starter, because now more than ever, he is behind the learning curve in a way, just because he has, again, bare minimum 1 less full season at a high level, granted in college, but still a high level of competition compared to a lot of other quarterbacks coming out. It's very rare you see top 10 quarterbacks have just 1 year of experience. I know Trey Lance and Jordan Love have had it as well, but that's definitely more the anomaly than right now the rule. And just remember that as you do watch training camp, and especially once we get into the season, he's still very raw, and so a lot to learn with just having 13 games of starting experience under his belt.
And the guys that do come in with 1 year tend to struggle. I mean, it's just that, Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
I think fell into that category. It's a really small percentage of guys that come in with 1 year and succeed. So that's definitely something that I think is going to bear watching, as they move on. Now, the other part of that, when you mentioned week 1 starter, he did get all the first team reps again today. So that's 3 straight practices for him that he's had all the first team reps. There was 1 day in there he wasn't here, the no surgery day on Monday, but the other 3 days it's been him getting all the first team snaps here. So I think that's to me it's noteworthy. Basically Shane downplayed it, coming in. He said it because of this day they just gave him an extra day, so we'll see how that plays out. But right now, as it stands, they've had 6 practices. 3 of them, Richardson's gotten the first team reps. 2 of them, Minshew's gotten the first team reps, and 1 of them they split. So we'll see what happens Saturday night. Another sold out crowd. But so you're looking for anything right now, any detail you can. And so I just thought I'd throw that out there. You can do with that what you want, but that's where it sits right now.
So the last 3 practices, right? Saturday night's now infamous practice that is more about off the field than the Jonathan Taylor, Jim Irsay bus.
They actually split that one.
That was a split. Okay.
They actually split that one, but he got the first set.
Okay.
That day.
So he was like the quote unquote starter, if you will. Tuesday, right? Monday he missed. Tuesday was first team, and now today on Thursday, first team reps as well. Look, I know Shane Steichen, and again, I think part of his job now is to downplay, especially the rookie quarterback, everything, just to lower expectations and not have people running away with hype, or try to, if he's trying to preach competition, not appear like he's giving Anthony Richardson the job right away. But it appears, George, at least by his actions, that he is doing exactly what we asked for, in the sense that they are giving Richardson every chance, I don't want to say to lose the job, but basically show that he is not ready. Like, that to me is the way you should go about this with a guy who, again, is inexperienced. Give him every single chance to show he's not ready. And so far, they're doing that with giving him first team reps. It's been up and down so far, especially the last 2 practices, but nothing, at least right now, to indicate that he's not ready or overwhelmed or shouldn't be the week 1 starter. They are giving him every chance to have and take the job. And that to me is how it should be. It shouldn't be Gardner Minshew being the, default week one guy, and now it's Anthony Richardson has to learn and try to outpace him. We talked about tie. If it's a tie, should go to Richardson in this situation. And the best way to do that is give him the first team reps, kind of have it be a little bit of a sink or swim situation, and allow the week one starter to be determined basically by Richardson himself.
Absolutely. And I think it's the right approach so far. It's competition, but at the same time, of course, Minshew looks sharper right now. He's the guy. I think the biggest difference right now, especially in the red zone between them, is you've got Richardson still trying to force some things or throwing the ball, over everybody and out the back of the end zone. And Gardner's much more willing right now to take that really short check down pass and just move forward. Can't go broke making a profit, right? That's sort of the mindset that Minshew has. We'll see. I think the red zone changes. The map in the red zone changes a lot when the defense is afraid that Richardson is going to take off. So we'll see how that goes as well. Right now, they don't have to worry about that because it's not a factor. So we'll see. But yeah, right now, I think obviously Minshew's the more polished quarterback. That to me is the most obvious statement you could make. But it's an open competition, and they're obviously giving Anthony Richardson the reps that he needs to get out there, work with those first team receivers, work against that first team defense. It's the only way he's going to get better.
Can't go broke making a profit. George, I love that. Sounds like a Jay-Z line.
That's a Matt Hasselbeck line right there. That was, he used to always try to tell Andrew Luck that was his advice all the time.
I love that. I got to add that to my lexicon.
He was here was, hey, just take the check down, live to play the next down.
Can't go broke making a profit. I love that. That's great. Adding that to the lexicon without a doubt. Props to you, Matt Hasselbeck. If ever wants a career as a rapper or a singer, that's a great line to add into a song without a doubt. I love that. And so again, that's like you said, well, we mentioned, I guess the last thing here with Richardson going forward here, at least coming off Thursday's practice, like you mentioned, it's not surprising that Minshew is right now making the quote unquote smarter and veteran move. It's also important to remember this is his second year in the Shane Steichen system. So he already kind of understands, even though it's a new team, understands a lot of the nuance, gets, a lot of the lingo, and already feels pretty comfortable in what he's doing. Where if you're Richardson, not only are you a rookie, not only trying to get adjusted to the speed of the NFL, but learn a playbook. It's just, plenty of people said this, it's like drinking from a fire hose. A lot is coming at you. You got to try to, absorb as much as you can, but obviously it's impossible to do. And so, especially for the first week and a half of training camp, George, it's, like I said, it's not a surprise that Minshew is ahead in terms of how he's looking so far and more consistent. But obviously, part of the benefit of training camp being so long, almost 6 weeks, is the fact that you have a lot of growth opportunity, especially once we get into the preseason here in a few weeks, to see Richardson really, hopefully, start to put it together. And again, if there's any sort of tie, if it's close whatsoever, it still should be AR being the week one starter. But Steichen trying to downplay it, said it's just trying to, the benefit or the product, I should say, the byproduct of him missing Monday's practice, that is Richardson. You buying that at all in the sense that that's why today he was the starter with the first team?
No, I don't. Like I said, they were even coming in. So to me, it was more of a choice that they made to go ahead and give him that extra day. And we'll see. I'm interested. I'm honestly interested in what happens Saturday and Sunday now, because it's 3, 2, and 1 coming in right now. So does Gardner get one of those days, and is the other one a split day? And 8 days in, 8 practices in, it's 3, 3, and 2, or does Richardson come out of there with an edge? I think that's something to keep an eye on.
Saturday's practice is going to be interesting. Like I said, it's going to be a sold out house. On Saturday should be a fun one. And if Richardson is the starter again, George, Steichen can say what he wants, but he is following out. He must be a listener of the pod. So Shane, shout out to you, buddy. Thank you for listening. Make sure you tell your friends about us, the Blue Horseshoe Pod, and also appreciate you following through on our advice for you and how to treat the quarterback reps here in training camp. George, at this point, unfortunately, would not be a Colts podcast without talking about Jonathan Taylor and his future. I thought this is very interesting. So we talked this on the pod as soon as he went on the PUP list, and then kind of, what hit the fan basically this time last week. I thought Jonathan Taylor being on PUP was more of a silent protest in terms of him more trying to make a stand about getting a new contract than it was actually him being hurt and not being able to participate on the field. I still stand by this. the sense that if he got a contract extension, he'd be on the field already, and practicing, would not be on PUP. But I thought Stephen Holder of ESPN put out an article Thursday morning that is fascinating, that maybe is proving why I'm wrong. He is reporting, according to his sources, that the Colts asked Jonathan Taylor to come in a little bit early, days, weeks before report day last Tuesday, just to make sure, kind of check it out, give him a little bit of an extra attention to make sure his offseason ankle surgery is progressing well. And Jonathan Taylor was put out by this and was upset, and clearly by the fact that we were sitting there on Tuesday and there was a few tweets now that proved to be wrong. But there's at least a question going up to the 10 o'clock report date of, is JT going to show up? I'm going to assume that he did not show up early for the extra medical reports to check out his ankle. Does that, George, the Colts kind of having already some concern even before we got to training camp, does that at all change your opinion or change the way you view Taylor being on PUP? And now all of a sudden, forget about just the contract in itself. Should we be more concerned about his health is going to be a reason why he is not on the field week number 1?
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, if it is a concern, it's a major concern, because if the ankle is still a problem, then you're getting into Shaq Leonard territory here at some point. If the ankle is still a problem, then you start worrying that it is maybe connected to the back, that there is something here, more serious than just, a sprained ankle and a high ankle sprain surgery. So if it is the reason he's stomp up, that is its own, that's a whole other level of concern here. I don't know what to make of any of this. I was told before, when the surgery happened, that this is a quick, nothing to it kind of a surgery. Jim Irsay mentioned the other day that DJ Speed had the same procedure. He's obviously been out here. He does now have something with his ankle, ironically enough, that came up in practice the other day, and was not able to go today, but he's out there, and it looks like he'll be back, probably on the fast track of things. But yeah, if it is an ankle injury, or if it is an ankle concern still, that's highly concerning.
Absolutely. And the fact that, again, like you mentioned, he got surgery January 25th. It was supposed to be, at least at the outset, a month recovery time. George, we're going on 7.5 months now. And it is a little concerning from the fact that the Colts are requesting him to come in early, because, again, you would think with the way he was progressing, and you would at least assume that the reason why he was not in OTAs and minicamp is it's unnecessary, and just, just don't even risk it out there. Just have him come fully healthy once training camp starts at the end of July, that he doesn't really need to be out there for offseason work, especially for the position he plays. And so the Colts being proactive, at least according to Stephen Holder's reporting, of them kind of asking him to come in early. Like you mentioned, other players have had surgeries and had injuries they're nursing. Everyone's banged up at the end of the year. At least according to Stephen Holder, no other player that he's reporting on was asked to come in early as well, at least that we are aware of. So the fact that the Colts were out ahead of this and said, hey, maybe come in a few days early, let's just check out, make sure everything's okay, that would indicate to me there's clearly some concern that this surgery is not healing the way it was supposed to, that there's something still going on, because otherwise, a month surgery, when you get it back in late January, at this point, George, 7 months removed, there's no question whatsoever about his health and ready to go. Now, of course, also add in the back injury that Jonathan Taylor was at least claiming that he never said, and some hamstring tightness as well, as also what Holder put in his report. There, we can be looking at Jonathan Taylor, George, possibly missing week number 1, not because he's traded, not because he's holding out, but because he's actually injured and physically, contract or not, can't be on the field. That changes the calculus of everything right now. And again, in this ugly war, how the Colts have handled this has been 0 out of 10 in terms of correct. They've handled it as poorly as they possibly could have handled it. But with that said, there's legitimate concern about Jonathan Taylor's ankle. And the Colts right now are doing the right thing and not giving him a contract extension. If you don't know right now, at a guy who's been banged up and had an injury, if he's going to be able to be on the field.
Yeah, if he's legitimately on PUP because of injuries, whether it's the ankle, the hamstring, the back, I don't care what it is. If he's legitimately on PP right now because of injuries, then there's concern there, and you understand where the negotiating, hang-ups are. But the bottom line is, there's a lot of things here that have been kind of slights to Jonathan Taylor as well. I mean, I think he's getting tired of being asked to prove himself after, probably wants to say, look at the franchise record book. There's the proof. Go open up the rushing records right now and see how many times my name appears. I think probably I'd be angry. I mean, if I put myself in his shoes, I wouldn't like that. The question continues to be just, how bad is this relationship? It sounds like it's really bad right now. And, injury or no injury, you still got to find a way to get him healthy, to get him out there in week one. And I think all indications are right now that there are dozens of our obstacles standing in the way of that happening.
And two, obviously with Taylor's request, trade request being out there, not being rescinded. I think also what this report does, George, is if it has to, I don't know how, if you're another team right now in the league, how you can actually still be all in or give your best offer to trade for Jonathan Taylor when there's legitimate questions right now and legitimate reporting that he actually could be hurt, and whether it is the ankle and or the back or just the ankle itself, that has to give teams concern and pause about trading for him. So again, if you're the Colts,
certainly
Jim Irsay, right, has said flat out, we're not trading him now. We're not trading him at the trade deadline. The market, we kind of talked this, I don't think it's going to be robust because you got to trade for Jonathan Taylor and pay him at a position, and running back is very devalued right now. I just don't see this latest report how a trade is going to, happen whatsoever now. Not that it's going to happen in the first place, but now you really throw it off the table.
If there are health issues, if there are health issues on top of all the other issues, it was a bad trade market to begin with. If there's legitimate health concerns, then it's pretty much a non-existent trade market, would be my guess. I mean, the caveat to that is the one that always says, and we talk about this all the time in the draft, just takes one team, right? You're not number one, you're not a first round pick until one guy changes that. So still the same way here. But common sense would tell you, no, none of this is good news.
Absolutely not. And now that's just adds another, again, layer to the situation where, I mean, I thought best case in the sense that he was holding out or, again, on pup just for the contract. And now if there's truly concerns about the ankle, obviously that changes calculus for Chris Ballard, Jim Irsay, the Colts, Jonathan Taylor himself, teams trying to trade for him. It just makes this even uglier, George, even tougher. But I think that definitely the one thing that maybe we get a little bit more clarity on with this report is the fact that now the trade market, which was also kind of light and not active anyway, should become even more dead with now legitimate questions about his health going forward for week one and beyond. So there's one contract situation with Jonathan Taylor. Another contract question as a guy going into the last year of his deal is Michael Pittman Jr. And Michael Pittman Jr. today was talking after practice, kind of talking about his contract situation. He was asked about would he play this year without a new deal in place. And he said, quote, "Do I expect it? I don't really expect nothing. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, then yeah, I would play without an extension." He's also asked if he wants an extension. Quote, "I think every player wants to get paid. I wouldn't mind one." And then put a little smile in there at the end, end quote. So obviously Michael Pittman Jr. is not going to hold out, George. Hot take. He's not going to hold out if he does not get a new deal by week number one. Let me ask you this, because we talked about in the last podcast that Michael Pittman Jr. has more to prove on the field than Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor has a legitimate gripe and a legitimate case to get a contract extension now. I would say it's not the case with Michael Pittman Jr. If you're the Chris Ballard and you look at the skyrocketing right now market for wide receivers, where just like quarterbacks, they are the two fastest rising positions in terms of money getting paid and the two highest positions right now on the field. You know that if Michael Pittman Jr. has a big year, being an unrestricted free agent, he's going to get a lot of attention. And there's always a market for wide receivers. Would you entertain the idea right now of taking a risk, giving Michael Pittman Jr. a contract extension, trying to buy in low, and then hope that he produces well above the contract extension? Or would you, if you're Chris Ballard, do what they're doing with Jonathan Taylor, have him prove it on the field in his fourth and final year, and then revisit that at the end of the 2023 season?
I would absolutely try to buy low on Pittman if I could. I just don't think that'll happen. I think that this is a guy, he grew up around the game. His dad was in the NFL for 11 years. I think he understands what he has to gain by having a good season. The GM said, Ballard said on report day that Michael Pittman's very important to what they want to do. So he's already kind of tipped his hand that this is a guy that he likes. So if you're Pittman, I think you don't have a lot to lose. You go out there and you have a good year, someone's going to pay you. He's not a running back, so he's got that over his dad. He's not a running back, so he doesn't have to worry about that market.
That's true.
And if I'm him, whatever offer is on the table today from the Colts is probably going to be on the table in March. So in your mind, you could probably only go up. And I just don't see him. He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's going to take a discount. And not that you can see today, it's a completely different approach to how he's going into his final year of his rookie deal. I'm not saying that he's greedy or anything like that. I just think he's a smart guy. He's a business savvy guy. He's been around the game his whole life. And I don't think he's the kind of guy who's going to sign a discount deal. I think he understands he's got more to gain from going out there this year and playing without a deal than he does to lose.
I know it's tough to project markets. Like I'm with you. If I was Chris Ballard, I would try to hammer out a deal now, and I would bet that he is going to have a big season and be a big part of this team going forward. So I would try to get in the door early, even though it's a risk, and he could flame out or not be not pan out as well as you think, and now all of a sudden you're on the hook for a big deal. But if he's not going to take it, obviously there's, for the most part, nothing you can do outside of just giving him $30 million a year. So you take that. But would you consider right now 4 years, $80 million, like basically $20 million a year contract? Is that, would you say, getting in early, or is that a contract that if you present that right now to MPJ, he would say, absolutely, I'll take it?
See, that one will be interesting because I think it's got to be in that. It's got to at least be 20 million. I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting place to go. You look at, to me, Christian Kirk's the one that really throws things off here. Got that big deal from the Jaguars because they were trying to bring along their second-year quarterback, and it worked. And people can rip that deal all they want, but they went to the playoffs. They won the division. The division favorite this year. They gave you more weapons. It worked.
It worked.
I don't know. If I'm Pittman, I don't know what I would do because I think that one's a really good offer. I don't know if it's, I don't know if you would consider that a discount. Do you want to go out there and see if you can make it 4 for 100? I don't know. That one would probably be one they would have to think over. I just know he's not going to be the guy that comes in and signs like a $16 million deal now and says, oh, that's good money. I'll go ahead and walk away from that. I don't know that for a fact. I don't know what he wants. He didn't strike me as the kind of guy who's going to be tricked into signing or who's going to do it out of a feeling of, well, I better get my money now. It just doesn't strike me that that's his approach. He's always struck me as a guy who understands his worth. If 31 other teams are bidding, is going to be better than if there's just one.
And he also knows that, again, his position right now is on the up. Receivers are getting paid, and they're getting paid big bucks. And just like quarterbacks right now, each salary or each new contract, I should say, that's given out is one up in each other. So you had Tyreek Hill get that $30 million and Devonta Adams get that $30 million a year contract extensions both last offseason. Now this offseason, there's no receiver that's going to top that, but you got Jamar Chase coming up next year. Like, you got a lot of young, big-time receivers. They're going to cash in soon, only going to raise the market. I think if I was Chris Ballard, I would put that on the table right now. I would say 4 years, $80 million, $20 million a year. Here we go. If you want to take it, that's what's on the table. And I would take the chance. I think it's fair for Michael Pittman Jr., but I think it's also for the Colts. I think a good deal where he could outplay that and exceed his contract in a year or 2 or 3 years. And you really hope that now all of a sudden, once Anthony Richardson starts to kind of come into his own and be up for a contract extension in 3 years, that you hope that, okay, now you got a guy, a number one wide receiver that is maybe getting a little bit less than he could have gotten if he does have a big year this year. So I would take the risk, George, if I was Chris Ballard. That's a risk that I think is worth taking in the sense that you try to buy in low and hope that he exceeds it. But like I said, it may be to no fruition because Michael Pittman Jr., for Chris Ballard and in this conversation, trying to be a savvy businessman, it sounds like Michael Pittman Jr. is already one step ahead of him and knows, hey, it's only going up. The more you wait, just like Lamar Jackson, who waited, an extra 3 years, cashed in big time there. I know it's a different position, but wide receivers now starting to become the same like quarterback as well. All right.
To be fair, he did not rule out signing an extension. He did not say that he doesn't want to do it. So, but I just don't think he's the guy that's going to do it just because they put an offer out there, of any kind. But the other angle on that is we talk about how the market is the issue. It's not a Colts versus Taylor issue. It's a market issue. And this shows it. And it also shows the complete different in the approach right now between how Jonathan Taylor feels about his situation right now, Michael Taylor feels about his situation, is the market at the two positions. People are paying wide receivers. They're not paying running backs. And that's why we are where we are right now.
Absolutely. And that's the drama that is embroiling this team. Like I said, it's not because JT's a bad person or a bad player. It is strictly, in one way, it's sad, but strictly the truth that it's only the position he plays is right now the biggest downfall for him and the biggest negative in terms of getting that deal compared to everybody else. Let's talk about, because we just kind of hit on Jonathan Taylor and his injury concerns, George. There's a lot of injury or some injury concern about defensive back. Now, we did have the return of rookie Darius Rush back to practice after missing the beginning of training camp. But two guys in Julian Blackmon, especially now rookie JuJu Brents, a guy that I think both me and you would have penciled in to be a lock of a starter when he was drafted and heading to training camp, now missed practice again, still dealing with a hamstring injury, George. We are now, for the most part, basically a week and a half into training camp. We're closing in and inching closer to the first preseason game being played next weekend. At what point do you start to get concerned with JuJu Brents and the amount of practices he's missed when it comes to him not being in the starting lineup now for the Colts week number 1?
I'm there now, honestly. I mean, you're 6 practices into a 13 practice camp, and he missed the entire spring. So, I think if he'd been out here day one, you're not going to be as worried about the spring. But now, if he's on the field Saturday, there's only 7 practices left. He's going to have a little more than half of the available time on the field. I think it's definitely a concern. The one thing the Colts can feel a little bit better about is that Darrell Baker's been out here showing out. I was joking about Baker Island earlier today because he makes plays every day. I mean, obviously he's got a lot of work to do too, but I think that's something that has definitely reached the point at which it's a concern. And that being said, you can't rush him out. If he's not ready, he's not ready.
Right.
There's no other way around it. But I think they've reached a point at which you have to be legitimately concerned with the fact that, your rookie cornerback, your second round pick, a guy that you're looking at to be a big part of this defense, is going to have half at best of the training camp practice under his belt. And as far as the Buffalo game goes, it's really hard to imagine him starting that right now. The schedule from here on out is a little bit intriguing. You're going to practice Saturday night. They've got the Sunday afternoon session. The players are off Monday, and then they've got a Tuesday practice. They're off Wednesday. They've got a Thursday practice, like an hour, and they're traveling Friday. I don't think that's a situation where a guy who's not taking a snap is going to be ready to go, for Buffalo. We'll see. I mean, that's all up to internal decisions and I'm sure he's been in his playbook. I'm sure he knows the defense really well. He's been out here. He's watching all the reps. It's hard for me to imagine a guy in that kind of a schedule with that many days off between, here and that game being physically ready to go.
Has there been any update? Because I don't want to speak out of turn here, or if he's not close, speak and talk like an idiot. Has there been any sort of update on when he could be expected to make his practice and Colts debut?
No, it's just the general. Every time we've asked, it's, he's progressing well. He and Julian Blackmon both. Blackman's been out all training camp as well. And same with Bo, progressing well and sooner than later. That's all we hear. So Darius Rush got back out there. He did not miss the entire training camp. He was there for the first practice for sure, maybe the second practice as well. But he got back out there today and is now part of the full team drills again, did the whole thing. But they're still waiting on Blackmon and they're still waiting on Brents. I think with Blackmon, it's less of a concern as well because it's obviously been around the league a much longer period of time. And I think it's probably going to take a lot shorter period for him to get ready. He's very engaged. I mean, we were talking about that off camera here before we started, but he's out there. He's been standing about 30 yards beyond the defense during 11-on-11 drills, cheering everything the defense does. He was getting on the sideline official today after what was admittedly a bad call. They gave a completion to Evan Hall that it wouldn't have counted on Saturdays. So, he was getting in there and he was very upset about that. But he's been extremely engaged. I'm not as concerned about his situation. Rookie, I think they're going to say that they can get him ready, and maybe they can. Maybe they're right. But I think if you hooked everybody on defense up to a lie detector test right now, they would tell you that there's some level of concern there. There has to be.
Because I was going to say, like, for me, I'm not there with my panic level just because, like, if you look at the schedule, like, if he's able to play, let's say, next week in Buffalo, and then you have 3 joint practices, between the Bears and the Eagles, that's basically, 3 scrimmages that are huge, plus those 2 games in the preseason as well. Like, that's still a good amount of high-level competition in order for him to be ready on September 10th. But I guess let me ask you this, George, from your experience and kind of how the Colts are handling this. Like you mentioned, they're off on Friday from practice. They have practice Saturday, Sunday, off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is light or off. I'm sorry. I know you
Wednesday
off. Thursday's a light practice, Friday traveling. So there's not a lot of time, I guess, to get him back on the field. But how much does he have to practice, I guess, to be eligible for the game next week? Like, does he have to just, could he basically practice Thursday and be on, suit up and play? It's a hamstring injury. So it's like one of those where if it's healed, it should be healed. Not like a broken bone you're kind of working back from. Like, what is the runtime, I guess, that you would say for him needing practice reps in order to be participating in preseason games?
I mean, every coaching staff is different, and that's where it's tough here because we haven't really been through this yet with Shane, so it's hard to know where he's going to go. But I know with Frank Reich, it was even veterans. He wanted like a full week of practice. So you'd say a full week being in the regular season being 3 days. So you would figure 3 days of practice bare minimum. A rookie, you probably would want 2 weeks most of the time. I'd be surprised, honestly, if he's out there for Buffalo at this point. But it's one of those things we'll learn about, as this process goes with Shane. If he's out there on Saturday, maybe there's a chance. If he's not out there on Saturday, I mean, if he's out there on Saturday, you get Saturday and Sunday, and whatever they do Tuesday and whatever they do Thursday, I could see them saying that's enough. Probably wouldn't start, but I could see them saying that's enough to get him out there at some point in the preseason game. But not out there Saturday, I don't see it. I just don't see it.
So would you feel comfortable in saying and projecting week 1 Colts defensive back starters on the outside? At least obviously Kenny Moore is going to be there, but outside corners, would you say Darrell Baker, Baker Island, and Dallas Flowers? Would that be your projection right now?
Right now, I think that's how you have to lean. Where we're at right now, what we've seen, in practice, those are the 2 guys that have earned it. I feel like Darius Rush is going to get his chance to get in there and put his name in the mix. And Julius, you would think eventually JuJu is going to get out there as well. But right now, as we sit here on August 3rd, it looks like Baker and Flowers.
Last thing, George, here, and a little bit, again, file this under bizarre Colts training camp story, which, that file's getting pretty full, George, for the last few years. It is getting very, very full. But here is something I was not expecting to talk about, and I don't think is going to be on your bingo card here for Colts bizarre training camp stories, and that is this. Jim Irsay, George, is being a good humanitarian and helping save the environment. He is promised and is now helping and pledged $20 million to help move Lolita, a orca that is right now in Miami at I think it's called the Seaquarium. He is helping move her from the Seaquarium in Miami to where the rest of her pod is in like a netted ocean sanctuary up in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle. So I got 2 things I want to ask you, George, one serious and one not so serious. Let's start with the serious one. $20 million to me is very an interesting number. We've talked about on this pod, the Colts have $20 million in salary cap space. Jim Irsay, again, he's not paying Jonathan Taylor because he doesn't have the money. So let's just put that there. But it's not exactly the best look, George, when you have Jim Irsay pledging $20 million to help save an orca, when that $20 million with the available cap space could have been used to give Jonathan Taylor a new contract. Does this help at all? Or I should say, does this hurt the Colts negotiations and the relationship? Does this drive a wedge even deeper into the Colts relationship with Jonathan Taylor and Jim Irsay, when now you have the news that he's spending money on an orca and not spending it on JT?
I'm sure the agent is going to use it, and I'm sure the optics, nationally are not good. There's no question about that. This comes up, I feel like, every time that there's any kind of a contract situation, even when it's not standoff like this. It just, even if like last year, Quentin Nelson just hadn't gotten a deal yet, and Jim buys a guitar or adds to his collection and whatever. Every time that happens, somebody brings up, even when there's not a contract extension, it's probably the most tired joke out there among the fandom of, he buys a guitar for $25 million. Why don't you buy a left tackle? I mean, you hear it all the time. It's two completely different. It's like my daughter yelling at me that I don't buy her candy she doesn't need because, she's going to be up till 3 a.m. with the sugar, but I bought a new car. It's completely different, completely opposite ends of the spectrum. The only thing it tells me is that even whales have better negotiating power right now than NFL running backs.
That, you know what? I think that's the biggest takeaway. I think you're right about that. Orcas, whoever their agents are, whatever their market is, the Orca market is higher and better right now than even the running back market, which is sad, without a doubt. Unfortunately, you're right. Like, I would love to joke because honestly, George, at this point, I'd rather laugh than cry. So I'd love to make this actually a joke and say, oh man, they're really screwing him. But you're right. It's two completely different things. Jim Irsay's never talked about the money being the reason why they're not paying Jonathan Taylor. Thankfully, Jim Irsay, and really no NFL owner, but Jim Irsay especially has never been cheap. He's never kind of shied away from he's never really shied away from spending the money when he has to. Again, they have a track record of extending guys, but it's just more one of those things that the timing truly could not have been any worse. Like, it's really when we're at a quote unquote quiet time, when Jim Irsay is not talking for the last few days, his agent, Jonathan Taylor's agent, I should say that, is not tweeting. Jonathan Taylor himself is not talking. Like, this is a quieter time. And to now have this story resurface of, oh, there's $20 million Jim Irsay spending saving Orca, not great. Yep. Not great whatsoever. I've not
From
seen...
an optics standpoint, it's terrible. From a PR standpoint, it's a disaster. But that's been training camp so far.
That has been. Now I'm just looking at Jonathan Taylor's agent's Twitter, Malky Kawa. So far, no tweets about the Orca. So I don't know if he's saving it in the back pocket as just another way to do it. But so far,
those are direct messages right to the owners.
No quote tweets or anything like that. He is just going right to the source. But
slide into the DMs on that one.
This is I guess more the serious question I have for you. How the hell? I believe that the quote is also Jim Irsay's donated $20 million and his private jet, I believe, if I read that correctly, to move Lolita from the Southeast in Miami all the way to Pacific Northwest in Seattle. How the hell, George, are you moving a grown adult orca from the two furthest points in this country? How are you doing that?
That is something I'm not anywhere near smart enough to figure out. I mean, maybe Andrew Luck had that Stanford degree. He was an engineer. Maybe he can answer that one. And I'm also very glad that I don't have to deal with those logistics. I mean, that just sounds to me, I don't want to be on that plane. I don't want to be the person who is figuring out how to get the whale on that plane. I don't want to be the person figuring out how to get the whale off that plane. What are they going to do? Just like fly over and just slide out the cargo? I mean, how does that work?
You build a tank? Like, I mean, I guess you got to sedate the like. So she's a female orca. They say average length for a female orca is 23 feet, George, and they weigh just about 7,000 pounds. Which this is shame on me for not remembering my elementary school math. What is a ton? Is what? 2,000 pounds?
They're like the Pharisees. That's what
I think so. Yeah.
So we're talking about
3 tons.
A 3-ton, 23-foot orca. They're going to have to transport in the air somehow. I mean, maybe that's why $20 million is needed, George, because you got to build basically a brand new plane and basically build an aquarium in the GD plane. But I'm looking forward to it.
Huge.
I'm sure with Jim Irsay, I would guess this is probably the biggest donation that they're going to receive for this project, I would assume. So maybe that, has him having the biggest voice. I won't be shocked, George, if you look up at Westfield next week and all of a sudden you see like a plane in the air and there's Lolita flying over training camp on her way to Seattle. That would be a very Jim Irsay move.
Be that Free Willy moment, right? Right over the top. And no, but I mean, he was involved with the whale last year too. It was November or December when he first got involved and got the whale into safety in Miami to begin with. So, now just carrying that on, and in all seriousness, it's a really good thing that Jim Irsay is doing. Endangered species and all the issues that are going on with the Orca. He's going out there and putting his own money on the line and getting this done. In all seriousness, it's a really good humanitarian move by the owner of the Indianapolis Colts. He's going to take a hit for it because that's the world today, right? You can't do anything without taking a hit for it. But kudos to Jim Irsay for saving Lolita.
I'm with you. Love the animals. Shout out Shark Week. Great week last week. I know that's not really Orca related, but really quick here. Last thing, Georgia, because I just looked it up here. At least according to the Seminole Tribune, what they're going to do is they're building a container, a container that's going to be loaded onto, I guess, a huge cargo plane. And they're going to fly that to Washington, where they're going to have a barge. Then that's going to take her out to the private pen. So I guess they are building some sort of mini aquarium. Good luck being the stewardess in that plane, asking if the orca's hungry or wants anything. There's a lot of fish. I'm sure you have to feed the Lolita, but that's going to be hopefully no splashing, hopefully no jumping out of the water. Imagine being the pilot on that plane. Woofa. That's going to be a hell of a project.
It's going to be a mess.
So there he is. Maybe, you know what, George, maybe Jim can donate the RV. That's a big RV. Put a little pool, little hot tub in the back, ride and just drive and show Lolita the beautiful countryside driving across this country. There we go.
Perhaps, who knows? Anything's possible, right? When it's Indianapolis Colts training camp, anything is possible.
Add it to the file, George. Another bizarre training camp. Jim Irsay spending $20 million to save the Orca instead of paying Jonathan Taylor. That's where we are. Unbelievable. All right. So a little housekeeping here on the Blue Horseshoe podcast. So we're going to be off for the next few days. I am actually going on a bachelor party of all places, George, to Scottsdale, Arizona. So you've been out in the heat and the sun so far for the last week in training camp. Any tips so that I don't melt away and never return to the podcast?
Not been too bad. Kudos to Shane for having it be early in the morning, and we missed most of it. But even if we were out here at the hottest spot, I don't know if I could speak to Scottsdale, Arizona. That's a different level here. That's like that's like me trying to play middle school football and then coming out and telling these guys out here how to play in the NFL. You're going out to the real heat, man.
114 degrees, and we're scheduled to play golf at 12:30 in the afternoon.
My tip is stay inside. That's my tip. Drink lots of water. All the water.
If you don't hear from me again, I probably melt on the 13th hole, and just know that I'll be living in spirit. And hopefully if you see a good Anthony Richardson touchdown pass this year, maybe that was me looking over this Colts team going forward. But because of that,
point to the sky.
You can point to the sky, George, from the press box as well. So I will be coming back. I'm traveling on Friday, coming back late Monday. So our goal is to have a weekend recap because, like George mentioned, their players are off on Friday, practicing Saturday and Sunday. So the goal is to be back late Monday night, right after the flight, right into the podcast to recap what is going to be a very busy weekend from the Colts and see and judge Anthony Richardson's, how many more first-team reps he's getting, how he's progressing. So that's why you'll not be seeing a podcast on your feed either on Saturday or Sunday. We're going to go for one kind of weekend recap here on Monday night. So look out for that. And again, if you haven't already, subscribe to YouTube, Blue Horseshoe Podcast. Subscribe wherever you do get your pods. We're the Blue Horseshoe Podcast with the bright blue logo. That is the feed where all new episodes will be dropped. And if you have a question, a training camp question, an Orca question, we are here to tackle it all, George. BlueHorseshoePod@gmail.com. BlueHorseshoePod@gmail.com is where you can email us any single question you have. We can try to be marine biologists. We could try to be injury experts. We could try to be, hopefully just answer some football questions and give you our football expertise as well. But we got it all covered here on the Blue Horseshoe Pod. Whatever does pop up, we will try to handle it as best we can. And I guess after this weekend, desert/heat experts as well. So have a great weekend. George, enjoy training camp over the weekend. I'm going to try my best not to melt. And we'll talk to you Monday night right here on the Blue Horseshoe Pod.